One of Aristotle's most famous works is Nicomachean Ethics. In this work, he defines what it means to live a good life, and he puts forward his ethical system, which is known as a virtue theory. The work was written for his son Nicomachean. In Book 1 of the Ethics, Aristotle is going to define ethics and his methods that he will elaborate upon in the latter part of his work. Aristotle claims that ethics are objective, but not too objective. He says that just like politics and beauty, there are many inconsistencies and disagreements in the realm of ethics. So we should not expect a super precise answer like that a mathematician could provide. But he does acknowledge that people in general are good judges for ethical decisions. So for the most part, we can get fairly accurate in our discussion. He also argues that young children are not the best equipped to learn ethics, since they are so young. Older individuals are similarly handicapped since they are set in their old beliefs and habits. So then teenagers and young adults are the best to be taught ethics according to Aristotle. Aristotle says that all acts aim for a certain good. These goods can themselves be goods aimed toward a final good, so they're intermediate goods. Aristotle argues that most of the time we do things and aim for intermediate goods rather than a final good. Let's just say you're a carpenter. Cutting wood, shaping the pieces, and hammering them all together are intermediate goods that aim toward the larger good of building a chair. The chair itself could be an intermediate good to building an entire furniture set, which could be an intermediate good to being recognized as a great carpenter. To Aristotle, intermediate goods are goods that are only useful to attaining an even higher goal. So if many goods are actually intermediate goods aiming for higher goods, is there one good that all other goods aim for? A final good? According to Aristotle, there is. This final good is happiness, or eudaimonia in Greek. Aristotle argues that no matter what someone is doing, they are ultimately attempting to achieve happiness, eudaimonia. And for Aristotle, this is why politics is very important. Because while one might act for their own happiness, politics is aiming for the happiness of many people. So politics is the ultimate method of attaining happiness, at least for Aristotle. Aristotle then goes on to define happiness in the way people think of it. He says most would agree that happiness is living well, but he acknowledges that people seek out happiness in three other ways that have nothing to do with living well. The first way he describes is through seeking pleasure, which includes making money. Most people live this way. The second way is where people aim for honor, such as holding a political office. The final way is through contemplation, such as monks living in a monastery. He says that the way to ultimately achieve happiness, to live well, is to live virtuously. So if living well is to live virtuously, Aristotle defines what virtues are. He says that virtues are aspects of our character that exist in a mean between excess and definition. Too much of a virtue is bad, and too little of a virtue is also good. All virtues reside in this middle point. For example, to be brave is a virtue, but if someone is too brave, they'll charge off without thinking and will do things that are clearly too dangerous. We would call that person reckless. A person with too little bravery would be too afraid to do anything, or at least anything big in life. That person we would call a coward. So bravery is a virtue between recklessness and cowardice. Aristotle uses other virtues as well. Humor is a virtue between foolishness and being boring. Righteousness indignation is a virtue between rage and being insensitive. Since virtue is a sort of intermediary or middle ground of extremes, and happiness is achieved through living virtuously, a person achieves happiness when they make their decision and take action based on the middle of two extremes, or the virtue. Aristotle says that we are all born with a unique character when it comes to being virtuous. Some people are predisposed to some virtues than others. One person might be brave while another is more patient. Each of us is adept at certain virtues while bad at others. We must take it upon ourselves to improve at the virtues we lack. To be virtuous, we must continually practice virtue. Because we are continually practicing it, it becomes our habit. Think of Michael Jordan. He was no doubt born with the natural talent for basketball, but through hard work he became even better and kept practicing until playing basketball was second nature to him. This talent became second nature through his constant practice. Aristotle says that a person is truly virtuous when their actions are virtuously and that virtuous action was done knowingly, for the sake of virtue itself, and it was not done on a whim. A virtuous person also displays pleasures and pains that are themselves virtuous. A virtuous person also finds pleasure in noble things like art, while a non virtuous person finds pleasures in bad things like drugs.